I woke up to the headlines in this morning's Gleaner. Another Sunday morning Gleaner headline. Boy, I think I need to just stop looking at the Gleaner. But I suspect because I didn't want to believe it, and also because so many people make a mockery of stories and they even use fictitious headings on trusted publications. I had to look several other places just to confirm that what the Gleaner was showing me was correct. And that story spoke to the passing of Don Wehby. My breath caught in my throat when I realized that he had really died. And then as I gathered myself, I thought, why is it that we are troubled? Why is it that we're shocked? Maybe that's the better question. When somebody dies, when somebody noteworthy dies. And it's kind of sad also to put it that way. I'm trying to put my thoughts together on this. And of course, as I looked a little more, I saw that he had succumbed to illness. And we know that death is not a respect of persons. We know that ill health can befall anybody. But when persons who are held in high esteem pass it, it's just so much harder. You know, when you hear the name Don Wehby, you think of Grace Kennedy. And for those who are not Jamaicans, Grace Kennedy is the number one food packaging, producing, distributing company in Jamaica. If I'm not mistaken, it's probably over 100 years old. And as a young person growing up and entering the work world, Grace Kennedy was one of the companies that I had sent way too many applications to for a job and never got a response. It was one of those places where if they hired you, you're fortunate. And based on what I know, I could be wrong. People who got a job at Grace never resigned. You would stay there, as we say in Jamaica. You stayed there till your son, them son. It was such a good job, or at least it was perceived. I don't know. I've never worked there. Forgive me that my speech is not as fluent as it's supposed to be or used to be. There's just so much going on in my head today. But I am going to push through because I want to dedicate this video to the life and memory of Don Wehby. You know, there are two names that for my entire 50 odd years on earth have been synonymous with Grace Kennedy. And that would have been Douglas O'Rain and then, of course, Don Wehby. Pioneers in so many ways. And one of the things that came into a conversation that I was having just yesterday was when Don Wehby was seconded to the Ministry of Finance. Brilliant finance person. And after just 2 years, he said, okay, I did my national service. He came in through the Senate and he served, I think, with distinction. Jamaica's financial climate was still in an upheaval state. He came in, he did what he could do. I don't know the ins and outs. I would never want to speak on it. But I know that he was a voice to be reckoned with in the financial arena. And then it was time for him to leave government and go back to Grace. There were those who, said what they said because that's what people do. People talk. But my memory was that when he was a part of the Ministry of Finance. The plans to move Jamaica forward sounded very positive. And then I'm not sure if right behind him came Nigel Clark, but not too far behind him was Nigel Clark. And as the economy started to make strides, I was very happy that two sons of the soil had started moving our country in a direction where growth was being realized. So, had it not been for his time in governance, I wouldn't have had this level of connectivity. But never did I even think that ill health would have been his portion. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Douglas Orane still lives. And yet here it is, Don Wehby has now made his exit. And what is man? So I was just looking on a post that Shelly-Ann Fraser wrote on her page on Facebook. And she says, Don Wehby was Jamaican born and bred, and he never forgot it. He poured everything he was, his intellect, his passion, his integrity, into uplifting this country and everyone around him. His legacy will live on through the lives he touched, the principles he championed, and the standard he set for generations to come. Shelley says, I will miss his counsel, his laughter, and the quiet strength he carried into every room. My deepest prayers are to his wife Hillary, his children Nicholas, Stephanie, Abigail, and the entire Grace Kennedy family. What good, my friend, you ran your race with distinction. And for those who are wondering, why are you singling out that comment? Grace Kennedy has been Shelly-Ann's sponsor, and Shelly-Ann Fraser Price, for those also who do not know, she is an Olympian of immense proportion. Now, I'm not a sports analyst, so I can't tell you how many goals she has won for Jamaica. But what I can tell you about Shelly-Ann, she is a small-bodied woman who came into her own as a teenager at one of these world champions or maybe the Olympics. I can't say. I would need to get all the facts. But just to say, Shelly-Ann is Jamaica's pride and joy. One of course. We call her the pocket rocket because she's so petite and so fast. She was the first woman, I can probably say, that, having had a child, came back to the sport and dominated. It is said that she became faster after giving birth to her son. I think his name is Zion. And following on her heels, Serena Williams, tennis champion, had her child and also came back to the sport. So record setting. So Shelly leading the charge and being an ambassador, whether that's the term that they use for her position in Grace or not, I will call her an ambassador. Shelly-Ann would have been greatly involved with Don Wehby in his senior capacity at Grace. And so we can totally understand her analogy when she says in her closing statements, you ran your race with distinction. And Indeed, we celebrate the life, the legacy of this illustrious Jamaican. And we bask in the memory that the road that he has paved for us will make our movement a little smoother. Ride on, my brother. Take your rest. You have done well. Ciao for now.